So one of the things we want to think about in terms of creating vitality internally is that our diet creates every foundational block physically in the body. So exactly what you're putting in is exactly what the body has to utilize for vitality and optimal function. So as we say, if the food that's coming in is of poor quality, the body's working very hard to meet its minimum requirements for function. Hence, we tend to have more cravings and eat a little bit more than we need to. And for really one of the first times in history, we're seeing that younger children are sicker than their parents with diseases. Your young son or daughter with diabetes, with high blood pressure, with sleep apnea, with obesity. And we need to really ask ourselves, how is that happening? Because this is not our natural state. So one of the things that I really want to make a point of is that we want to see our calories count. Now, what does that mean? So if we have a calorie that is from a carrot versus a calorie from a piece of white bread, it might take 10 carrots to give us the same calories as the piece of white bread, but the nutrients in the carrots are much higher. So we've eaten the same calories. So it's really important to remember that all calories are not created equal, because sometimes calories come with all kinds of good, vitalizing, energizing nutrients. In the Western diet, and we have typically ascribed it to the West, but it's gradually making its way through the rest of the world, is a diet that's high in refined food. And this came about in the late 50s and early 60s, interestingly enough, as a convenience. Fats were made to last longer. Flour was processed in such a way that it would last longer. But in doing so, we've tricked Mother Nature a little bit, and she's a little bit angry with us in terms of how that then comes to affect us in the body. So these foods that have high fructose corn syrup or high in sugar or refined white flour actually create inflammation and changes in the body that are not favorable ever. So it's not to say that you can never eat white flour or white sugar or high fructose corn syrup, but it's to really look at them as treat or moderation for that. And when we come into Gurdwara and we find that the majority of the treats and snacks are foundationally made from high fructose corn syrup, refined white flour, and sugar, we need to take a step back and say, are we deeply nourishing our spirit? Because all of those nutrients are then what go on to give us the capacity to meditate deeply. In the Ayurvedic traditions, which I've been very blessed to have an opportunity to learn in, we think about these foods coming in and creating ama or sludge in the channels, and all these deep, beautiful channels that open us up to higher intuition and spiritual knowledge become thick with the clogging nature of these foods. And by eating foods that were foods that our ancestors ate, they ate naturally with the seasons. They ate fresh prepared foods that were seasonally available. So think of yourself going to the supermarket and you have your cart in front of you. If you dive into the aisles, and particularly for the moms in the audience, you have your young child with you, and the amount of marketing and advertising that's going towards children and to foods that do not nourish them, you well know that because you're driving through the middle aisle in the supermarket and suddenly child says, I must have this. I won't be happy, and there's a full-blown temper tantrum to get that food for them. And it's to understand the age that we're living in. The intuitive process of eating is no longer present. We're in an age where we've been inundated with information that disrupts our intuitive cravings. And we start at the youngest ages in the marketing. It's a very corrupt system, actually, and it's very challenging for us to know then what is healthy. And so I always come back to some foundational pieces. And one of the things that's the most essential in that is that the food be freshly prepared and not be highly processed. So we want to eliminate the white flour and the white sugar using whole grains. Now, of course, sometimes in Gurdwara we have basmati rice, and this is beautiful. In the Ayurvedic tradition, basmati rice is considered very sattvic, meaning it promotes elevated consciousness. But foods that bring us into tamasic thinking are the deep fried foods and meat and alcohol. Now, of course, everybody has their own lineage and journey with nutrition. And so there's little steps we can take, maybe cut back a little bit and see if you notice a difference in your meditative qualities of your mind.
How is it that we can have a relationship, to have an experience of the naad that is being offered from the ragis or from the sangat and chant? No, we're getting tired, we slouch, we sit against the wall, and we just have this experience that we're not invited or integrated into the Gurbani experience. So really when we come to Gurdwara, we're coming to meditate.